We're in.
Okay, we are in. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Rock and Stone, a Votann faction-only podcast brought to you by three Votann mains of the highest caliber. I am your host, Tom of 6++, and I am back again. And we've got a tier list. This is actually my second tier list this week. It's slightly more serious. I did a Halloween spookiness tier list of all the factions in 40k on our main show earlier in the week. This is a little bit more analytical, perhaps, than that, although that show was a lot of fun if you want to go and check that out. I'm joined, as ever, by two wonderful men from other wonderful 40k teams. Let's start with you, James. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Getting a bit cold in the shed now.
Yeah, the weather has turned. It's not going to blow away, is it? It's going to be all right. It's going to survive the storm.
But I keep it well. Busy. I'm trying to paint some more Votann for the weekend.
Oh, wonderful. What's on the slab?
The November one. So they come around so quick.
Yeah. Very, very nice. Very, very good. Actually. And I am also joined by the handsomest man in 40k, and you can actually see more of him than normal. He's got the cheekbones out for us by shaving away the sort of exterior. Jake, how you doing?
Yeah, man. I'm going to share James's sentiment on being a bit colder, but that's because obviously half my face is gone.
Yes.
Feeling good. Really looking forward to be able to do a tier list. I'm keeping up my tradition of doing a Votann podcast, but never actually doing any Votann hobby. I've just got my lovely 3D printed insects.
Oh, look at you with your Space Marines. Look at you. Very
nice. It's something to do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But also, you had all your Votann done a long time ago, in your defense.
Yeah. I'm just honestly just gagging for more. So
yeah, I can't wait. I'm very excited. Very, very excited. Hello, Nogal Matthew. Welcome. Good to have you here. For those of you just joining us, we're going to be doing a Votann tier list tonight. I have done some Votann hobby. I've had a very intense couple of weeks getting Votann ready for various bits and bobs I've been doing with Team England, which has meant I can't just piss around with whatever units I want. And they've been like, oh, you have to have this, which meant building a lot of Sagitaurs, but we'll get to them a bit later. I never have to build another Sagitaur again, in theory. So I made it.
I'm painting my second. I don't know how you guys have done 6.
Yeah, a lot of pain is the answer. A lot of pain.
The secret ingredient is you get someone else to do it for you.
Oh, it's all right for you. All right for you, Vanguard boys.
Well, no, I didn't even get those. I borrowed the studio ones, but the other 6 I just got done by my mate because he's got an airbrush and I don't. So I was like, I have to, because otherwise I use contrast, like all of it will just turn up loads.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Welcome, Elowizzle, and Votann hobby question: best way to get the visor to fit in the helmet? I put a bit of glue on it and I just kind of fiddle around and wait for it to sort of fall into a natural place, and I feel like it often does.
I know this is it. So if it's for the Hearthguard, they've got little nubs on. And sometimes if can't press too hard, but they use the clippers to like grab the nub and then shove it in.
I don't know if that was
Welcome, Bread. Bread says rock and stone. Bread, rock and stone. That is a good set of things to have.
That's a good sandwich.
Yep. All right. Wonderful. Okay. Well, we're gonna get into it because I've got other bits and bobs I need to do tonight, and I'm very keen to make this a focused tier list for you all. Give you the good stuff. So let's get the tier list up. And what we're going to be doing is, I guess, just generally chatting about and grading the units based on, kind of how useful we think they are, how often we find ourselves wanting to include them, what we think their kind of role is, and we'll try and really test the limits of this a bit. Obviously, it's going to be hard with so few units. It isn't actually going to be all that easy to oh, hold on. Where's everyone else gone? Where's everyone else gone? That's not what we want. Do we move you over here? Aha! There we are. Look at this. I'm really good at tech. I'm really, really good. So yeah, there's not that many units. So actually, I think finding the kind of granularity between them might be a bit difficult. But we'll do what we can. We will see what we're able to create. Obviously, if you have thoughts, please let us know in the chat. We had Sharuni in here during the spookiest tier list, who had forensic thoughts on how spooky every single individual faction in 40k was, and absolutely let us know them all the way through. And it was really, really good fun. So yeah, by all means, do chuck in. Yeah, this is it. So Christian in the chat says probably shouldn't have a D&C tier because nothing is bad. That is exactly the problem.
Yeah.
So we're gonna treat this all relative, I think, and that's the thing. To be in B or C or D right now for Votann, I don't think that makes you a bad unit. Because I think the entire index is in a nice spot in terms of the utility and the price of the units, but it does fall on us to try and have some difference between them. So we'll maybe see if we can have some stuff in the lower tiers and try and justify why that is, and you can all lose your minds in the chat, because obviously, as we know, it's not a big index, and we know a lot of these units get used. I think we're starting with
10 units.
Look how cute that list of units is. There's nothing.
It's tiny.
It's absolutely tiny. For the spookiness tier list, there were many more just doing whole factions, and this is an entire army's entire roster of units, and it's diddy. It does make you realise how cool it's going to be when we get some more stuff. I don't know if any of Votann mains out there have been following on Votann Reddit, but there was basically a little group who were wondering if there's a Votann unit with a crossbow coming, because there was something on the rumor engine that had a little crossbow, and it looked like its little hand had the same sort of armor as a Hearthkyn. So people were going, oh, maybe it's like a pioneer with crossbows. But maybe not. Maybe it's
at this rate, we'll take anything, right?
Yeah, I'd love that. I think some little dudes in like jackets and coats who are like forward deploying, we could do with that. That'd be great.
Just pioneers on foot. That's what we want. Yeah. That's the first thing we want.
Ad says, "How is Jake live when he's dressed as Hannibal on my TV?" It's a good point. It's a good point. He's in many places.
I am a man of many talents. But is that me? I was in a mask. So
yeah, you don't know that it was Jake. You don't know that it was Jake. You've got no proof. Jake was obviously doing some wonderful stuff this week, promoting a good cause, which we will talk about towards the end, because we'll put a link in the chat for you all to have a look at. But let's start doing some units. Let's give you some sweet tier list action. So the first up is the Kahl. How do we feel about the Kahl, guys?
Pretty useful, I think.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. Especially, I think the other thing as well to just quickly note as well is the Kahl has gone up in my estimation since the WTC or WCW, I think people are calling it, the FAQ thing.
Definitely.
Okay.
It's like a weird indirect thing, because he's a model that allows you to have like grim demeanor now on, which I think's better now, the Hearthguard. For the ignoring the movement modifier, especially with Night Spinners being a thing. And the fact that gives you a 5-up invul, gives you lethal. Like, I think I probably would have put him in B before, but I'd probably say like A, just because of that change. But I don't know.
Yeah, what do you think, James?
I agree, because I think he actually got worse indirectly with the data slate change. Because before it was a really easy, quick way to get judgment. But now with the data slate change, being able to throw those 4 judgment out, he's not as... You just don't need to.
Yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they're as essential to hand it out, right? He was pretty essential. I think he's good at... I really like him, particularly on the Plasma Hearthguard, when you run them that way. If you're doing that, getting lethal hits so you just push more wounds through is really nice. And actually, it turns that unit into a really scary Overwatch unit. Like, little units have to respect that, because every hit you're getting with your shots is just wounding. Yeah. So that's how I use him when I do take him. But I do find quite a lot of the time now, when you're fiddling around trying to get those extra points, you're like, oh, if I just nudge him down to a certain other chat, which we'll talk about in a minute, then I can fit the units I want in. Yeah. So do we think A tier is right for the Kahl, or do we think lower than that?
I don't know. Like,
I mean, because I generally always run him with the 10 Hearthguard plasma.
Yeah, same.
And that, because that almost goes in every list I build. I do want to put him in A, but I think
my concern now is that you're probably, with the new data slate, if that becomes more common, you're probably more likely to run the Vulcanite Hearthguard.
Yeah.
And then his ability actually becomes sort of anti-synergistic with it, because you want the mortal wounds, and he's taking some of those out of the pool by the auto wounding.
The thing is, I still think though, like, even with that, he makes the grenade packs actually useful.
Oh, completely.
A lot of matchups. So
yeah, that is true.
I guess the argument would have to be how many 6s do you have to get before it's not efficient for the Volkite? But then equally, you can just spend the strat to do sustain. It's a weird one. It's really strange. I just also like he gives you the unit of 5-up invul as well. Like, I think that's
really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's true. And there's definitely a lot more stuff out there that can actually, especially if you hit like 1,000 Suns or something, they're taking the whole save away.
Yeah.
can get quite scary. All right, well, I'm gonna defer to you guys. We're gonna put him in A for now.
Okay.
I feel
well,
like
we can always change.
I think that's it. And I feel like he's probably low A. I think he is one of those ones
100%.
where I definitely am an R now, and he's not an auto include for me at the minute. But he is obviously a useful, nifty little dude, and he does look great on his rock. Speaking of nifty little dudes, next up,
it's also on rocks.
Yeah, also they've got to be on rocks. They're small, right?
They can't see
all the characters except the Forge Master have rocks. So we got the Einhir champion next. How do we feel about the Einhir champion?
See, I'm not I used to run quite a few, but now I'm not the biggest fan of him. I don't know why. Maybe the reroll charge from Deep Strike's nice. And then the Mortals are obviously nice, but I've never felt like I've needed them, if that makes sense. I
think I'm more running him because he's a cheap way to give the Hearthguard unit -1 to win.
Yes.
Okay. For that reason.
Yeah.
So
I guess you find
like
that mortal charge.
Yeah.
If you're charging into a unit with a support character, you do the epic challenge. He does just beat them down.
Yeah. He's very good for punking a hard target as well, or helping a squad. Even like I run one with a 5-man, and like 5 Hearthguard aren't killing like an Armiger on their own, but with him, with Impact Mortals and his hammer, they tend to get it done. And so I do really like him for that. And the other thing I like with it is that obviously when you've got those plugged in, you're not using any of your CP on rerolling charges, which does feel good.
Yeah,
doesn't
100%.
feel nice having to use that. And I feel like you spend a lot of time with Votann trying to make up the ground by making slightly longer charges or coming in from reserves or whatever else. So no, I'm very fond of him, but also he's the cheapest character, isn't he, right now?
Which I think is like a big USP for him because he's the cheapest. You can take a couple and put them in your Hearthguard squads for the -1 of wound.
Exactly.
I think there's the missing the people are missing the trick with running him solo. I think with the
yes, that's true.
With the get back up upgrade.
Yeah.
So then which is what I ran that at my first event with him, and he was a bit of a hero because it only worked out as like he was 80 points or something, and he could just sit on my backfield if he needs to, or screen out. Someone comes down, try and shoot him off, and then he just gets back up anyway. So
yeah. I definitely think there's a case for a little character using that in Votann right now, just to have someone who can cause that kind of phase problem. Oh, he is tanky. He's the tankiest one.
Yeah.
Sorry. Second.
2 out of 4. 2 out of 4 up.
Yeah, he is solid. And 5 wounds as well.
Yeah, so just stick him in cover and he's just laughing, right? But equally, though, with that in mind, he has dropped out of my lists, and it's very rare, I think, I've seen myself dropping like actual like for example, like with Thunderkyn, it's like I still have either 3 or 2 units, whereas him I've just dropped him entirely. So maybe I don't know. I'm feeling a B, but
interesting.
I'm happy to be proven wrong.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I would rate the champ higher than the Kahl.
I would totally agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to go on the majority and we drop the Kahl to a B.
I mean, maybe that's what we do. Maybe drop the Kahl to a B and stick him in A.
I think for now that's fair, but I think long term you could make the case, and I think this was like if you remember how we were all talking about the Votann characters when they came out.
Yeah,
like it's only the fact that they're cheap that's saving them, right?
Oh,
like, they're not in the grand scheme of things of 40k characters. They are not great. Yeah. So it might be that as we work through the list, actually the characters get shuffled down, and actually that's actually a big part of how this makes sense as a list. But for me there, I find one pretty essential, and I've enjoyed using 2. I like having that heavy target removal hidden in the list. I like having Impact Mortals, and I really like reroll charges because just getting where you need to go with Hearthguard is half the struggle a lot of the time. You're chasing after stuff that's phantasming away. You're like, come back, little bastard.
And the Night Spinner's there like you are.
Oh, don't. Yeah. Ugh, Night Spinner's disgusting.
Yeah, it's coming for you on the weekend, Tom.
Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
I don't know if I'll have the heart. So.
You can try. You can try. Slow me down, I'll still strike you down. We have got next up Uthar the Destined.
I think it's fair to say, I speak for everyone here, or I say before the changes, he was below D.
I mean, he was the worst. He was the worst thing in the book.
Yeah, by a million miles. But I still think I'm just going to go out and say I think he's probably the only thing I'd ever put in C, but only because I don't feel his inbuilt ability is better than the enhancements.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think that's
and I
right.
think that's how you have to look at it. Yeah.
I think it's worth saying, I've seen some very high quality players. Danny of Team Poland uses Uthar, and I think there are certain kinds of builds where he clearly does have a role.
I think he is unique. Like I think he is a good character. Like even I was going to run him at one point, but I just didn't feel that I had
keep writing lists where he's in, and then he always ends up shoved out towards the end, just because you're like, I just actually need just more bodies or more bikes or whatever it is. But it is worth saying he's got some great little bits of tech, right? Obviously, he gives the buffs to his unit. He's got a nice little Dev Wounds sword. He can change one of his hits of wounds to a 6. So if he goes into Epic Challenge something, he's got a very good chance of putting like 4 or 6 mortal wounds on it, which is very nice for punking some of those irritating little units in the game.
It's the one damage for me.
The fact that he reduces damage to 1 can just be hilarious if he gets into the right things.
Especially with those epic challenges, here's my big, massive hammer or sword, and then you go, no, it's damage 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's good. Or even just like I've seen games where he's solo and he'll just charge into something and be like, I know you can't kill me.
Yes.
Like you physically don't have enough tax to kill me.
Yeah, exactly. So he definitely does have like a spoiler role, I think, in there somewhere. And people like him with like all kin melee weapon, a little 5-man with all the kin melee weapons in it, and that's actually quite a respectable amount of damage to high AP if you slap Warrior Pride on it or something. But
yeah, of course.
It doesn't, in the way I've tended to play it, he doesn't tend to quite make the cut. Although I'm desperate to use him. I might run him. I've got a more narrative event coming up. I might run him for that.
I think it's also wrong. He's 90 points, right? And there's a lot of other stuff for 90 points.
That's the thing. Most of the characters fill in a sort of amount of points that nothing else we have fills. But he genuinely costs more than or the same as 2 of our other units. And at which point you're like, right, okay. Sorry, after Jake.
Sorry, I was just going to say as well, like I was saying about the enhancements, it's like you could just take a Kahl with an enhancement. He gives you lethal and he does everything the same, and he's got a bit more choice on melee.
A character versus him, it's quite hard to argue with it.
Yeah, of course. So I think a C is probably because I think a C is like. He's obviously been shown he has some uses because like
he's been in high performing lists, but I think you don't see him a ton, and he is one of those ones where it's awkward to fit him in because characters aren't really our strong suit, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, more characters,
right? Forge Master. What do we think of the Forge Master?
So again, this is also how I look at tier lists because. The Forge Master for me is an A because of how good the unit much better he makes the unit he goes with, so I'd put him in A. I think he's the best character we have, and
that's interesting. Okay,
honestly, like having played them all, I would agree.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I certainly really liked him when I ran him at Saffron. I mean, obviously, for those not in the know, like he gives Thunderkyn +1 to hit, which is great because it's one unit you either don't have to worry about judgment, or even if they are judged and they're pulling shenanigans, you're still hitting them on 3s, like through smoke or stealth or whatever else.
The other thing I really like is his little gribbly guys, the ecols. They don't have a keyword.
No.
So you can just take them as the first casualties.
Yes, exactly. So what that means is that when let's say your Thunderkyn come in from reserves and a unit tries to overwatch them or something, you've got a few just ablative wounds there. And so when people start shooting them, the little idiots die rather than your big valuable boys.
Yeah.
So I do see how he adds to the unit a lot. And actually his own gun isn't bad. It's only AP1, but it's a good gun.
It's damage 3. I mean, that damage 3 gun has done quite a bit for me, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's a nice point.
Quite funny as well.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Because the other thing is, obviously, he hits on 3s normally, which I think he's one of like 3 or 4 models that actually hit on 3s.
Yes.
Which means with a +1 to hit, he's hitting on 2s.
Yes. Yeah. So he's quite accurate. Yeah. And so I definitely find the full Thunderkyn brick with him in is both a very good shooting threat, but also the Overwatch on that is scary for things as well. Like,
I've been
one
really
day I'm going to
enjoying
use
that
the little
unit.
torch. I never actually use the torch. I'm always like, oh, am I in range of the torch? No, I'm not. Like, forget about it.
No one is ever in range of the torch, and if you are, then something has gone horrifically wrong.
No, I've been using them a lot actually with the long list.
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
Nice.
Okay.
That's cool.
I think that's the move as well. Like now they've like this WCW thing is like also gone. No, this is how it's being played. I think the long list is really good on him. Yeah.
So
I think he's
his
great.
Judgment around when he kills stuff. Yeah,
exactly that.
Yeah, I think he's fantastic. Like genuinely, like he was the one I bagged on the most when we had our index out. But actually, now at the price point, now understanding the game a bit better, I think he's the best character. So.
I would agree. I think that's fair because it's what 210, 215 for him with a brick of 6 Thunderkyn.
Yeah, 250. I think he's 65.
Yeah, which is so cheap when you think about it. It's almost half of a character-led Hearthguard brick, and it can really slap into certain matchups. Like you go into Necrons or Chaos Knights or something, like they're just such a flexible unit. So that's completely fair. All right, should we bung him in A then?
I think above the champ as well.
Above the champ. Go on, champ.
Best character. Get away.
Yeah. So, speaking of perhaps not the best character, it is the Grimnyr. What do you think about the Grimnyr?
Completely useless, except for the fact he can go in a Sagitaur.
That's one job.
I saw that finger come up, Jay. I was like, no, don't worry, I'm not going to forget. I think he's like his shooting's okay. It's just a shame his abilities are very bad. Like his +1 toughness is like, wow, this looks great, and then it's like, oh, I can only go in warriors. It's like, wow, this doesn't look great anymore.
No, that's his issue, isn't it? His gun isn't terrible. I think the overcharged version of his gun is pretty good with as long as you're firing at something judged. And a 24-inch range on it is actually quite nice because sometimes we have a bit of an issue with that. As you say, the main thing the Grimnyr actually gets used for is filling a Sagitaur that you don't want to spend more points for something else to put in there, right?
You could take 2 units of warriors, 5 Sagitaurs, and then you take the Grimnyr, so you save yourself something like 45 points, which could be the difference between some enhancements. It could be the difference between the points you need. Yeah, exactly. So I think I don't know, like I think it's. I think because he can go in a Sagitaur, like as in, and you'd actually want him there because he's not like Uthar, where like Uthar's only really good in combat. Like he can at least do something from ranged.
Yes.
And he is a free model unit as well, so you can tank the wounds on his.
But then the 4-up invuln across the unit is annoying, right? Like he is irritating. He's actually a candidate I would definitely be tempted for Wayfarer's Grace on him if I did take him, and maybe outflanking him and just having him. That's a really annoying unit to screen that shoots quite well, isn't going to die just if you shoot it back, and is just obnoxious and could also do like actions and stuff on the board depending on.
I never thought about him as an action piece.
That's how I'd be tempted to run him, and actually I am looking at doing that because I just think that would be quite fun, and also it's like a sneaky wizard who's just popped up from the flank like Gandalf to the rescue with my 2 ecogs. I'm going to sort everything out.
No, but is that worth him being not in C?
I don't.
No, it's absolutely. Whenever I have ideas like this, they're not good ideas. They're just cute things I want to do.
I think again, like if we use the same logic of Uthar's in C because he's a very niche reason, then I guess the Grimnyr has to go in C for the same reason.
I think if we're accepting that we're probably not going to have a D tier unit in this list, and I think we have to put them in C. Yeah. Then I think we put him in C and.
I would put him above Uthar.
Above Uthar. That's fair. Yeah. He probably does see a bit more use than Uthar.
It's only because he shoots.
Yeah, it's only because the gun and because he's cheaper. Not if you go get cute with him and put Wayfarer's Grace on him, but I'm definitely going to do that. I'm absolutely going to do that. I've decided now. It's too late. I won't be stopped.
Lester GT comes around. That cheeky little
a classic outflanking maneuver that only works as long as you're not playing someone who can screen. I love it. I got a lot of time for that. Maybe I'll rapid ingress in. That'll catch people out. He's also got one melee attack. Let's not forget the one melee attack. That's the old bonking stick. He'll get you. Like Andrus says, he's very good for Homer's cleanse in the middle. Yeah, I was thinking that as well. Yeah. Like Andrus, like an action monkey who isn't going to die the first time he's shot is quite nice. For if they overwatch him, he's still going to do the job. If they try and remove him just with guns, he's still there to carry on. We see how much Eldar pull with those kinds of units that get back up again. So I'm really tempted to try it. Yeah, absolutely cool. So we're into some of the units now. We finally made it through the characters who make up almost half the roster. It's worth saying at this point.
That is quite sad, isn't it?
So, Hearthkyn Warriors.
Okay, I think another candidate for D if before. I think just because they were so expensive.
Yeah, I think where they're priced now, they're fine. They're they're basically, if you want a battle line to do screening and running on objectives, Hearthkyn are good for that.
Yeah, I totally.
They're not amazing for it. They're not bad at it. They're fine.
I would
55 points for 5 is how you have to think about it, and that's cheap, right? That's cheap when you put it that way.
I'd probably. I also like the little combo of like auto rifle, rotor cannon in one squad, and you just like absolutely blap something. Or equally, you split them between the two, so you've got like sort of little good units.
I've been quite enjoying the Magnarels actually. I've had one Hylas, one Magnarel.
You can get them to hit.
Well, I'm a quite a lucky person, so if hitting on 4s. As long as you've got judgment, they're not bad because D3 plus 3 damage. There's not that much of that now.
Yeah.
It just means they're annoying to get rid of.
No, I think I've been running mine with Magma and Auto because I haven't had the rotary cannons. I've now eventually just found somewhere that's done like little mini assault cannons where I can sort of pass as those. So B, I think sounds fair.
I think they're fine. Like
they're not great.
They're nothing exciting.
You don't tend to write a list that doesn't have any in, right? You need them for the way the army plays. You want them to go and die.
Who else is going in your Sagitaur?
Exactly. They've got to go in the Sagitaur.
It is worth mentioning that their ability to make objectives sticky is incredibly good.
Very good, yeah. Especially like in the game at the moment with loads of indirect and Eldar are really the only army that can get around the whole sticky with the incarn and indirecting onto it, teleporting over to take it off you. But
completely. I think it's extremely useful. It's just so nice to know if they're coming in from reserves and shooting you. It's like, you can shoot them, but it's still mine. I've got whatever.
Do we think worse or better than the Kahl?
I'd rate them more than the Kahl.
Because of the objective.
I can't conceive of a list I write that doesn't have at least a couple of squads in.
No,
whereas I can write lists without a Kahl and be like, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I 100% agree there. I think the fact the mission play for them is more crucial than what the Kahl will do. So. Yeah.
Also, shout out to everyone I've ever played who is surprised when they're toughness 5. Like every single,
oh my god, everybody,
every single time they start shooting the Hearthkyn and you go toughness 5, and they go what? Every time, and it's like dwarves, man. Fucking hell.
Do you know what? That is the most common thing I think I've had with people is they're like, are they really toughness 5? I'm like, yes, they are really toughness 5. Like, are you sure they're toughness 5? Yes, I am 100% sure.
Yeah, ridiculous. Right, okay. Next up, we've got Thunderkyn.
Oh, now we're hitting the spice.
Yeah.
I really like Thunderkyn.
So, there's one weapon option that I really, really want to be good.
Yes.
The beam.
It's not good.
Is that the beam?
That's the beams.
Yeah.
The beams are trash.
And it's probably worth saying Thunderkyn with bolt cannons, with beamers, or with grav cannons are all probably going to be ranked very differently on this list.
100%. And someone did ask us to rank that. So we're going to let you know. We'll rank it the highest based on what we think the best option is, but we'll also let you know how we'd rate it. Because I would put bolt cannons and beamers quite low down here, I think. I don't know how you
I would quite like the bolt cannons, I have to say.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, do you know what? It's funny because it probably goes, for me, beams D, bolt cannons B.
Okay.
But just only because I just think like the swinginess of Grav can sometimes just be quite detrimental.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you roll 66 and you go, oh, that's only like 8 shots. Crap. Like, you know.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So where would you put the Grav at overall?
Probably A, I'd say.
Yeah. Because I think the thing with the Grav is it's just a bit of a jack of all trades gun.
Yeah.
Like it can do most things.
Oh, yeah.
It can kill hordes, it can kill marine bodies, it can kill vehicles. I love that about it. And
I think
it's got so many shots.
It's so many shots. And it's blast.
Yeah, blast.
That's the
kind of thing. The only drawback is its 18-inch range.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Which I think both Thunderkyn and Hearthguard get played around pretty well by good players. And this is why I don't think you can build lists that go too hard into either of those right now.
No,
I think you need to be forcing them to make choices that then let those things get involved, rather than being like, I'm going to dunk you with 800 points of 18-inch range guns, and them going, what if you don't do that?
Yeah. What if I did Phantasm?
Yeah.
Again, it's why I quite like the bolt cannons, because the bolt cannons at 36.
Yeah.
It's decent.
Interesting. Yeah.
It means you can start them on the table as well,
yeah.
Which is the thing that I found, because the reason I was putting the Grav in reserve, probably for like everybody, is because 1, to cut the angle, and 2, because the range.
Yeah.
But now it's like, when you look at the bolt cannon, you're like, okay, this has a really decent-ish profile. Strength 6 is nice. The AP is a bit lackluster. The fact it has built-in sustain's nice.
Yeah, good for overwatching. Although they were
fantastic
on 5,
yeah,
but getting the extra hits as well is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just, the range, but I think the beam is just it. I am 100% in agreement with James as well. Like, I wish the beam was better, but it's just not.
There'll be like a beam boys detachment or something, and we'll all get our beam front.
Give them like extra 3 shots or something.
Yeah. Oh, we all know it'll get
sustained 3.
So. Yeah. All right, so let's put Grav Thunderkyn in A. I think of the units up there, they're probably the best in A so far, because the Forge Master only really works by complementing them. I would happily run 6 without a Forge Master, because again, 150 points, they are obnoxious.
So cheap.
And they're one of those units that I switch between being like, this is the best thing ever, or being like, I'm a bit frustrated with it. But when I don't have it, I feel vulnerable. Yeah.
I think something I will say as well, I know I keep mentioning this WCW thing, but I think because I imagine a lot of events will be using it.
I think it'll become quite normal, yeah.
And I think now Grim Demeanor doesn't work to ignore the AP and the damage reduction, like some places were playing it. I think that's what stopped me putting them in S.
Yes.
Because with that combo, like you were getting through Redemptors.
Well, that's the thing.
Redemptors are popular.
It's the Redemptor killer, right? And actually, it's quite hard to kill Redemptors with the current set of units in Votann right now.
Yeah.
In the light of that change, because that was one of our big ways around it. Okay, it's another stubby elite unit. It's the Hearthguard. How do we feel about Hearthguard, boys?
I think they're the best unit in the book, but
I think they're the best unit in the book. Yeah.
They are. They're just
get them in that S.
They are. I would put them in S, because they are glorious. They are absolutely glorious. They're tough. They fight real good. They shoot real good. They're -1 to wound. Void armor is brilliant on them.
T6 -1 to wound is a really interesting point as well, because I think that's one of the more tougher units in the game that have a rule like that, other than
absolutely.
Guard, but Eldar Unreal.
So they've done the thing where it's only -1 to wound. If it's higher, then which is fine. I mean, it's
Eldar have it differently.
All the elite guns just struggle with it. And they are the funniest thing in the world to drop Ancestral Sentence on. They're great with Warrior Pride. The 2 best output strats both take these up a level.
Yeah.
And they're really good for just pushing the objectives. And they often require like a whole army to remove.
And just to answer Bread's question, or not question, but really, it is a question. I do think 30 is viable after playing 30, but I actually think the sweet spot is probably 20, between 20 and 10 and 20. Like,
I agree.
You don't want none, and you definitely don't want. I think 30 just meant there was so many points built into that, whereas I just felt I lost a lot of mission play.
Exactly.
Whereas having that split, I felt was good.
Yeah, it's the it's all very well and good to be like, oh, I'm going to deep strike this, I'm going to strat reserves this. But if you have too many eggs in that basket and then you get staged on, you get screened on, it gets really peaky. Yeah. So you need enough on the board that they have to respect to make it work. They're so good with rapid ingress, though. I just love rapid ingressing Hearthguard in places. It's just funny. They're very, very good. And if Night Spinners cease to exist, then they'll be even better.
We can AD tree.
Yeah, I mean they were doing all the heavy lifting for me before the improvements to Votann, and they're still great now.
Yeah, I think this was also fair to say as well. If we were to look at, like we're saying, we were looking at other units going, if this was before the changes, it would be D. Yeah. This was probably the only unit that has stayed at the same level.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just such a versatile unit, and they don't they take a bit of a dent to try and take down as well.
They really do. Yeah, and so the whole army kind of creates all these problems, and then some way you've just got this hammer that's going to come down and just make a mess, push an important point. And usually in games where something either goes wrong for them or you position them badly, that's the games where you're like, I'm in trouble now. If you don't get the value out of them to push it, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have got the Pioneers, the Bikers.
So I'm really different on these because I want to put them in S, but they do just die to anything.
They do die to anything.
I think
they're another unit I would never not have.
For 100%. I always take 2 units at least.
And one of the things I desperately want to try is 2 units for mission and a 6 that's going in hot. Yeah. And I want to try that because I'm really feeling an urge to play the whole army more aggressively than I'm currently playing it. And I feel like a 6 of bikes turn 1 gives you something that you wouldn't otherwise have in the army to reach out and trap and tie up and pin things and do damage early doors. So I do feel like Pioneers are very strong. And obviously, as we've already talked about before, 2 3s is just, you can do whatever. Tactical cards are sorted, mate. They'll go
mandatory, basically. Yeah. You can take 2 3s.
Because then your opponent literally has to screen their whole half for the entire game. Because you can always get in there. And having that threat is absolutely massive. They are vulnerable to getting murdered.
They're not the most durable thing, are they?
No.
And that for me, that's the only thing that's bringing them out of S.
Yeah.
I would see. I am super hyped on them. I think they are fantastic. I think where do we think's fair? I think A is probably. I think either high B or mid A, between that. Because
I reckon probably mid A. Because
I think maybe in between the Thunderkyn and the Ironmaster.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
I think that's fair.
I think they are genuinely very good. At 90 points, I remember when me and James were talking about Votann points back before the changes, we were like, Pioneers, already fine, completely fair. 105, totally fair. 90 points, 180 points for 6 is so cheap.
Really cheap.
Yeah. I can't inflict running 18 on myself because I can't do that. I don't want to do that. They take a long time to build and paint, these boys. But I can't see why 18 wouldn't be quite scary, just yeeting. I mean, you've got to hide it is the issue, obviously.
I have just realised, right? Are Berserkers on this list?
That's the one! I knew I was missing something.
Do you know what? I could only realise it, and then once we got to the 2 tanks, I was like, we're definitely missing a unit.
We literally checked, and that's going to give you some idea about, right, well, you guys...
Okay, that's how we feel about Berserkers.
Distract them with some analysis while I find some Berserkers.
I would offer to do lore, like Tom does,
Go on,
I don't know anything about the lore. They all are dwarfs. Some would call them short people because that is what they prefer. I don't know. I guess we could say.
Do you know anything else about them, Jake?
They have the symbol that looks like it's from Transformers.
They absolutely do.
It does.
That's pretty sweet. Hey, they're in.
Oh, brilliant! Okay. That was your ad break.
No, you did. You did very well. I know you can perform under pressure now. That's what we want.
Yeah, I have to
That's
do it with Steve all the time. So.
Like Andrew says, Pioneers sustain 2. Turn 1 can be devastating. They can get angles versus Eldari, etc. that you normally wouldn't. That's exactly it. Like Andrew said, I think it's just a pressure piece. It's something I always think. There's always that flipping Chaos Rhino that you're like, I just wish I could just go up there and just rinse that and get rid of that, or at the very least just trap it so they can't go and do homers with it for 5 turns like they definitely want to.
I mean, I played a recent game against Admech and just used both my units of 3 and just kind of hemmed them in their deployments at turn 1.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, cool.
That's it.
Play there, please.
That's how you do it. That is what they can give you. So it's, I think Pioneers are going to get more popular. Yeah. The only issue with them is I think they probably don't love Space Marines very much with the Redemptors and stuff. I don't feel like that's a very easy target for them. Oh, the other thing for Pioneers that's worth saying, and it's true for the Warriors as well, grenade keyword is lovely in this army.
Yeah. AC2 as well. Nice. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Whenever there's someone, I've got an Eldar player and he's going, I'm going to yeet my Incarn into you turn 1, and I'm just there sort of like, I've got 2 CP, I'm ready to basically just mortal wound this guy to death. Send him over, it's fine. Let's get this. Let's get this done. Yeah, and the ignoring cover on the bikes is also massive.
Really, really nice.
Absolutely massive for chipping wounds through. Because otherwise you can end up on 2-ups even with your good units. Cool. Okay, so then we've got the land fort. Choo choo.
I know we're all a bit split about this, aren't we?
I haven't had much experience with it, so I can't really comment. So
I'll tell you, James, I've played a bunch of games without it lately because that's what everyone said I should do, and I do miss it. I miss having at least one in there just to be that thing that is tough and stagey.
So the last 5 games I played, I haven't lost one.
Yeah.
I won 2 in every game.
Yeah.
They just don't die. They're just so good.
That's a flex.
I mean, that is partly just about James and who and what he is as a player. Yeah. But it's I genuinely, and I've seen. I mean, I follow results all around the world. I have to write them up for Goonhammer all the time, and land forts do well. People do well with land forts. I'm sure it's terrain dependent, but I've seen lists with triple land forts that have smashed it, like absolutely smashed it. So I think they're probably a bit like the Sagitaurs, where it's about hitting a critical mass of just hulls. And there are things in the game that can one-shot them. That's the annoying thing.
Because I think if you've still got the 2 by the time the Hearthguard come down, you've got your big block of 10 Hearthguard, you've got your 2 land forts, and your 6 Thunderkyn, and what do you shoot?
Yeah. That's it. You just push it all up then. So it's about not losing it early, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the nice thing with them is, the reroll wounds when stuff gets out of it is cute, but it doesn't tend to come up a ton. It can come up on Hearthguard.
I was going to say, I've been using it with Hearthguard Volkite. It's nice. To be honest, it's not going to change the game.
No. But it is
nice. It just helps, right?
It's nice.
I think
the other thing with it is OC5 is just nice. It's just nice to get some OC5 going on when you're grappling for points with flipping Chaos Armagers or whatever else. And there's a lot of stuff in the game now that does quite happily pop a Sagitaur that simply bounces off a fort altogether.
Absolutely.
If you haven't seen yet, we put a battle report on 6++ that's Votann versus Drukhari, and I'm playing against Paulie Wallace of Real Space Raiders. I've got 2 land forts in that game. I would not want to have played that game without 2 land forts, I'll tell you that much, because Dark Lance is coming in hot, and they would have rinsed any Sagittars you had very, very quickly. But land forts can just kind of be like, nah, I'm all right. I'm fine. You carry on.
It was the mains podcast derby. Who has the better mains podcast?
Yeah, exactly that. And so, as a Drukhari defector, don't worry, I'll be back to Drukhari. They just have to write us a fun set of rules first. I will be back. But Votann, this is a fun army to play. That's the funny thing about it. It's just a fun index right now. And again, we haven't described a single unit yet where there's nothing you can do with it to make it work, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the Land Fortress is a solid tank. And I think as lists pivot away from wanting lots of stuff coming in from reserves towards wanting good board presence, I think you can have lists that have plenty of Sagitaurs and land forts and are probably solid, like probably good.
I'm running double each this weekend.
Yeah, that's what I ran at LGT, and that was a full one, and I really liked it. It just bullied some matchups, right? Absolutely bullied some matchups. And the other nice thing with the land fort is it's definitely the best candidate by far in the book for getting realistic use out of reactive reprisal, because it goes toe to toe with other vehicles, then it shoots them back and it kills them, and it's delightful.
I mean, it's just like, I did it where he dropped one of his forge things in. Obviously, he can't use the Nurgle strat in his shooting phase.
Yeah.
Shot it back, and he had to use his CP reroll to save it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Big deal, that.
It's worth saying when we were talking about weapons earlier on, for the Hearthguard earlier on, I'd say they're probably S tier, regardless of whether you choose to go Plasma or Vulcanite. What do we think for the land fort? Does it make a difference what gun you take?
I think the Magma Rail's not great, unless you're Tom.
James loves it.
I love the Magna Rail.
Really?
And so the reason why is because it's the scare aspect more than what he does.
Oh, okay,
if you say I've got a massive gun that can do up to 12 damage, and you might not get a save, most people are going to play differently around that.
Yeah.
And I have had it where you play Imperial Knights, you hit the Magna Rail, you roll the 6 to wound, and you go, there's 10 damage.
Yeah, you're dead now.
Yeah.
What do you run, Tom? Do you run the Magma Rail?
So I have run the conversion beamer a lot of the time for the damage 4 and for the exploding hits. I found that's the most consistent, but I am really tempted to try the Magna Rail. I played against Kahl recently with like triple Devilfish, and I was like, if I had a couple of Magna Rails here, you don't even get up the board, right? Like they just get melted immediately, and I don't have to worry about it. And I think it's a gun where, as James says, the threat of it is massive. Getting shot back by that is like, well, Forge Fiend is in trouble, and anything like that is not going to enjoy that. And I feel like it now, if we think about Marines and these hull lists, the nice thing about it, I think, if you had a bunch of Sagitaurs and a Magna Rail and they've got their, I blank a save, you're like, I'm going to shoot you with a whole army that's not a Magna Rail. Yeah. Do you want to use the blank a save? And they're there like, there's a Magna Rail out there. I have to wait for that.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the thing. For me, I like on paper from not using it, I've preferred the beam. Like from the look of it,
that's what was my instinct went to. But I think now the same reason I put the Magna Rails on the Warriors. I just think they're a type of profile we need, because you can't just spam AP 1 and 2 and get away with it right now. There's too many things that cancel that out. Yeah.
I will preface it with, like, I would only run Magna Rails because I run 2.
Yeah.
So you think you run one land fort with one Magna Rail? Magna Rail doesn't do enough. Doesn't feel like it does that much.
Yeah. But two is going to smooth out the inconsistency. Yeah.
I like it.
Also, the fact that pretty much every vehicle that it's going to go into is going to wound on 2s.
Yeah. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. And it's your Land Raider troubleshooter, isn't it? Just get that Land Raider wide open. That's nice. Okay, so I would be tempted to put this, I think, probably low A. I think it's good. I think it's lots of lists run it. I think we've got another unit we're about to talk about that definitely overshadows it.
Yeah.
But transports is the way to run Votann, I feel like, right now. And I do definitely think it's a good unit. And I think at 225 points, I think it definitely justifies its inclusion when I use it.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it's cool.
But it's a matchups thing. I think at the very top of the game, it can sometimes feel a bit vulnerable and a bit ineffectual.
Yeah.
But I think it just muscles you through a whole bunch of indexes on your way to those tougher games.
Definitely.
Also, it looks cool. It's neat.
It looks really cool.
It's the Jonker tank.
I'm gonna have to try the Magna Rails. When we go to Toys of Mass Destruction GT, Jake, maybe we should run some Magna Rails and just see how we go. We can have a Magna Rail kill tally competition, something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
That'd be good. Okay. Next up, it's the Sagitaur.
It's amazing.
It's so good.
Its name does start with where it should be.
Get in there.
Right.
Yeah, get in there, son.
I think, again, another example of this unit is amazing for pace index, because it dropped. How many points did it drop?
It dropped 20, I think.
Yeah.
So if you think it dropped 20 and then Warriors dropped 40, so because you had to really take the Warriors to take it, so it went down like 60 points indirectly. Well, 2 went down like 60 points indirectly, but
Yeah,
it's
so good.
It's got so many versatile weapons. The fact it scouts, it's also really annoying at toughness 10.
Yeah,
it's so annoying.
Really small, really easy to hide.
It's so positionable on the board. It's like the new Star Weaver, right?
It literally has the perfect profile for especially here in the UK with the UKTC terrain layouts. Like you can fit probably 2 in a building. I think
you can fit 2 in a small well.
Those UKTC ruins, you can have multiples of them protecting the stuff that got out in a little, and you can just have so much OC on a point.
Yeah,
because they're OC 3.
Yeah, and the ability to advance and still drop the warriors is also really good for just getting them wherever you need them.
It also has a gun profile to deal. It's got a gun option to deal with most. Threats,
it's flexible. I'm loving the high las beam at the moment.
That's what
the main thing I love with it is when you're rolling it with any opponent who's actually fun to play. You're both there oh, and you roll it, and then there's a 6. Everyone's like, yay!
It's when you roll a double 6, and you're like, oh no!
It just gives it the ability to just every now and again just solo something, and that's just funny again.
It's fantastic.
So I think they're wonderful little tanks. They're obnoxious to remove. They open up that whole kind of transport Russian doll style of play that I think is really good. And the scout move is just fantastic.
There's just nothing bad about it.
There is literally nothing bad about it.
No. And also, for just under 1,000 points is 30 warriors and 6 sages. That just seems like a bargain. An absolute insane bargain.
Amount of value. Yeah. And good OC. And just really obnoxious, and I love them for blocking, tying things up. They're you can throw them away,
as well,
screening, and people find it really hard to deal with sometimes. They really do.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think
they get the party started. They go and they hide. They make problems, and then people start trying to deal with them. And then you're like, right there's my in. I'm going to go.
And that's it, because they push out straight away. So that turn 2, you then have enough space, usually to drop your big bricks.
It's why people really don't like going second into Votann, because if you're going second into a bunch of Sagitaurs rushing out, it's very hard to get momentum back in the game. Then I think. Yeah. So we're going to rename S tier Sagitaur tier. Okay, yes. That's now the name of S tier. And when we come back and do this one day after they've been adjusted, maybe in a few months' time, we'll see if the Sagitaur still makes it into Sagitaur tier. Wonderful. Now, the Forgotten Men.
I love these guys.
Berserks.
So I will say James definitely changed my opinion on these guys. I ran some myself. After not wanting to even look at them because of the last episode we did actually, and I thought they were mega useful actually, especially with this impending marine time we're going to be going through. To have them into things like Blisters, Dreadnoughts, potential Whirlwinds as well if you can be lucky enough to get them up the table. I think they're very good.
AP 4 damage 3 is really nice.
And the strength 9, which is that nice point where most vehicles are going to be wounding on 3s or 4s, and pretty much every infantry you're going to be wounding on 2s.
Yeah, exactly that. The Fight on Death is good for when you're into melee trading armies, because you still get your value even when they're hitting them back. And I mean, so I played Black Templars at the weekend, and 5 of these just goes through like a 10-man squad without blinking, right? Feel no pain and all, just chops them to bits. It can do a 10-man chosen squad pretty happily on its day, or not far off. It's really, really good for 100.
You do. It has to be said. You definitely want the double judgment.
Yeah, you do. They are one of the units where the value drops off massively without double judgment. And they are one of the units in here, and this is quite... I think they can just get misused and just die in a way that I think some stuff in here doesn't, which I think is why people are more reluctant to use them. But I think 1 or 2 squads as a threat is really good.
It's also it's the same thing, I was saying with the Magna Rails. When you say, I've got this unit that's, 15, 16 attacks, strength 9, AP 4, damage 3. That in itself that's a scary unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I've played into Wraithguard and stuff, and they're one of those units that Wraithguard have to take seriously. They can't be near them, because that again will do most of a Wraithguard brick. Yeah. So it's just useful to have something that can control the space like that. That's much cheaper than a full Hearthguard brick.
And I think definitely with the limited roster we've got, they definitely fill a little role, like a little tech role that we just wouldn't have otherwise.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
and the mole launch is cute when it happens.
It's cute.
It's cute when it happens. Nice.
They can slow you, but it's on a 4-up. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It literally will never happen for 50% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. So where do we think they go?
Oh, I'm gonna say B. I'll say B.
I definitely think B. I'm just trying to figure out whether I think they're worse or better than the Kahl or the Hearthkyn.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I'd say they're better than the Kahl, but worse than the Warriors.
Yeah,
that seems fair. Fair.
Yeah.
I think that's because Warriors have the mission play, they have the range, they have the ability to be put in a Sagitaur because they're cheap. The sticky objectives would be useful. The Berserkers, like this, Votann do a lot of damage, right? This is probably one of the only units that does it in combat.
Yeah.
But the effectiveness of that damage is very unique, and and it's flat damage free, which we don't have a lot of at all.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
So that's the list, boys. Is there anything we want to adjust? How do we think? I don't think that looks terrible. Obviously, slightly overcrowded A, but it's all right.
But naturally, I think it would be. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't think I would change any of that.
No,
personally.
Because I think everything in A definitely deserves to be in A.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, 100%. I think everything in S also deserves to be in S. But I think maybe more like the debate is like the list, the actual row has the right units in. Are they in the right order? But I think I'd say they are. So yeah, I like it.
Think so. I think so. I think it's again it highlights that the index is in a good spot. There's a bunch of stuff that has a place. And I think
everything usable.
The fact that good lists use even the worst stuff we've listed in here, I think that's really cool. So get out there and try all this stuff. Honestly, I'm really increasingly, the more I try different builds, the more I lean towards lists that have a little bit of all of it going on. Yeah. I really don't love just skewing into the Sagitaurs or just skewing into forts or whatever else. I think I'm enjoying having a real mix of tools. But I feel like as soon as you go too heavy in one direction, you're going to hit certain kinds of builds that just kind of outmuscle you on that particular angle. But what's exciting is that you can cook up quite a nice mix of stuff in here.
Yeah, great. No, I agree.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's going to be us done for tonight. But before we go, Jake, I wanted to give you the opportunity to promote what you lads at Vanguard have been doing this week.
So we shaved. Well, I shaved. Steve didn't. So basically, we've decided. Well, we do Movember every year. Mm-hmm. Fantastic cause for all the sort of men's mental health, physical health. All of those sort of things. Everybody's had a dad, a brother, or has a son, or anything out there that could affect that. Like myself, I've been quite vocal with obviously things I've had that's happened in my past and such, and where I am now. And I think things like this are the reason for it, for where I am now. So we've decided to do Movember. So there is a link to donate. Anyone that could give anything would be very appreciative. We have a goal. We want to try and hit $2,000 this month. So far we're at 200 and something pounds. So we're doing all right considering it's 2 days.
Hey, it's only 2 days in.
That's amazing.
Exactly right. And because of that, I'll be growing back my facial hair, but also a lovely mustache. So you'll see that in a few episodes of Rock and Stone. Steve will also be doing the same. Now, bear in mind, I like having my facial hair. He doesn't. So, so if you want to see Steve also look very uncomfortable or look like Richard from Friends, then please, obviously, if anything you can do is very much appreciated.
We'll have a link included in the video when this goes out, and we'll put a link up on our Facebook shortly and promote that as well. So it's awesome that you guys do that. We haven't done anything for it this year, so it seems only right that we plug you guys and push what you're doing.
No, we do appreciate it, so thank you.
No, it's a good cause, a wonderful cause, and I think the lovely thing about this community is how much everybody wants to help other people. So I think it's a great way of tapping into the endless generosity of the wonderful nerds that make up this this world in which we occupy. So
exactly.
Thank you so much, Jake, for coming on. Thank you, James, for your expertise as always. Really excited to see you soon. Obviously, Jake and I are planning to come to the Toys of Mass Destruction GT and run some dwarves and make some stories. So we're going to we'll probably take a couple of weeks now before we reconvene and work out what we want to do next with this. But we'll be back again before long. So keep on slaying with the Votann.
Sorry, James. From Jacob.
Oh, what was the question? Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you, Jacob. No problem at all. Sorry, I hadn't scrolled down. How embarrassing. That's awful. Love the list, guys. Sorry for a dumb question about Uthar and Warriors. How do you get them all with kin weapons? Can't you only have 3 to a squad? Jacob, you're completely right. It is 3 to a squad. So what you'd be doing is you'd have the Sergeant and 2 with kin melee weapons and then Uthar. And what that means is going into a sort of ruckus, you've got a whole bunch of AP2 damage to, in Uthar's case, AP3 attacks. And it's just as melee trading pieces go, it's a bit cheaper and less sort of essential than some of the other ones you'd have. So he's just quite good for being a pest, is how I would describe it. You'd use him and a little 5 squad just to be something that can clear out little trading units early in the game, knock stealth suits off an objective or whatever else, and is just that bit more annoying to remove.
And you can always give like the 5th guy the med pack, so then they're definitely a little bit more annoying to remove.
Yeah. And it's just having a couple. This is the same reason that the Berserks are useful. You just want a couple of trading or push units that aren't costing you, here is my 400-point brick of Hearthguard. Yeah. You need to be able to have some back and forth on objectives that isn't that costly. And the nice thing with a squad with Uthar in is obviously Uthar's hiding at the end of it like a little pocket rocket with his chance to spike some dev wounds. So he's great for taking down, as I say, if you're trying to take the last few wounds off a vehicle or a monster or something, he's just great for going in and just finishing the job. No problem at all. Thank you so much for the super chat. That's amazing. We really, really appreciate it. It's lovely to get a little bit of support on the show. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to create a Rock and Stone questions section on our Discord, just so if there is any questions you guys have in the interim, you can chuck them in there. So do check out the 6++ Discord. All the links are on our YouTube, and we'll field any dwarf related questions that you have next time. Right. Thanks very much, everybody. Been wonderful to have you here, and we'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.